Your last name is a map. If it is on this list, that map runs out of these mountains, across the Atlantic, into the north of Ireland, and then one step further back, into Scotland, to a specific valley, a specific clan, and in some cases, a specific family of outlaws that two kingdoms tried to destroy. Most Appalachian families know they are Scots-Irish. Very few know what that means at the level of the name itself. Because here is the thing DNA testing has finally confirmed. The Scots-Irish were never simply Scottish. One name on this list is secretly English. One belongs to the most famous feud in American history. And several belong to families that were exiled from Britain for cattle raiding before they ever saw Ulster. All 15 are on this list. Is yours one of them? Subscribe right now, hit the bell, and stay with me. Number 1. Campbell, one of the most common surnames in the entire Appalachian region, and one of the few on this list that comes not from the Scottish lowlands, but from the highlands. Campbell is the anglicized form of the Gaelic Campbell, and the meaning is stranger than most Campbells have ever been told. Cam means crooked, Buell means mouth. Campbell means crooked mouth, a nickname given to some long-forgotten ancestor and carried by one of the most powerful clans in Scottish history. Clan Campbell dominated Argyll in the Western Highlands for centuries, expanding through warfare, marriage, and political skill until the name spread across Scotland. From there, Campbells crossed to Ulster during the 17th century plantations, and a century later, their descendants crossed again, moving down the Great Wagon Road from Pennsylvania into Virginia, the Carolinas, and the mountain valleys of Tennessee and Kentucky. If your name is Campbell and your people are mountain people, your map runs through Ulster to Argyll, to a clan that answered to no one. Number 2, Armstrong. And this is where the outlaws begin. Armstrong means exactly what it says, strong arm, a name earned in battle according to border legend. The Armstrongs were the most feared of all the border reiver families, the raiding clans who lived along the violent frontier between England and Scotland and answered to neither crown. Their stronghold was Liddesdale, a valley so lawless that a 16th century traveler, finding no churches there, was told there were no Christians in the valley at all, only Elliotts and Armstrongs. Both kingdoms tried to break them. In 1532, 30 Armstrongs were hanged at Newcastle in a single reckoning, and it changed nothing. When King James finally crushed the border clans after 1603, Armstrong families fled or were transplanted to Ulster, where they served as a buffer against the Gaelic Irish. Their descendants sailed for Pennsylvania and Virginia and pushed into the Appalachian backcountry. If your name is Armstrong, your family was not merely Scots-Irish. Your family was the reason the term needed to exist. Number 3, Graham. A border reiver name so widespread that it appeared on both sides of the frontier, with Graham families raiding in both England and Scotland, sometimes against each other. The name itself is territorial, generally traced to the Old English place name Grantham, meaning grey homestead, carried north into Scotland by a Norman-era family that became one of the great names of the borders. The Grahams of the Western Marches were considered so ungovernable that after 1603 entire branches of the family were forcibly deported, some to Ulster, where the name took deep root before crossing to America. And here is the detail that proves how directly Appalachia remembers Scotland. Well into the 20th century, mountain children were warned to behave or clavers would get them. Clavers was John Graham of Claverhouse, the 17th century persecutor of Scottish Presbyterians, nicknamed Bloody Clavers. His name survived as a bogeyman in Appalachian cabins for 200 years after the families who feared him crossed the ocean. If your name is Graham, that memory is your inheritance. Number 4, Johnston. And pay close attention to the spelling, because that single letter T is one of the most useful genealogical markers in America. Johnson, without the T, is overwhelmingly an English patronymic, son of John. Johnston, with the T, is territorial and Scottish. From Johnstone in Annandale, John's town, the seat of one of the great riding clans of the Scottish West March. The Johnstones were border rivals of the first rank, locked for generations in a blood feud with the neighboring Maxwells, a war between families so vicious it became the stuff of border legend. When the border clans were broken, Johnstons moved to Ulster in large numbers, and County Fermanagh in particular, filled with Johnston families who later sailed for America and settled the length of the Appalachian chain. The two spellings blurred in American records. Clerks wrote what they heard, and thousands of Scottish Johnstons became Johnsons on paper. If your mountain family has ever alternated between the two spellings, the T is the truth trying to survive. Number 5. Elliot. The other half of that lawless valley. If the Armstrongs were the most feared clan in Liddesdale, the Elliotts were their partners in everything, so intertwined that the two names were spoken together as a single warning. The origin of the name is still debated, with some scholars tracing it to the Old Scottish form Elwald, and the family itself famously never settled on one spelling, with the joke running that Elliotts with one L and one T were the true border stock. What is not debated is what they did. In 1603, the year King James took the English throne and the border world ended, a raiding party of Elliotts, Armstrongs, and Grahams rode into Cumbria and stole 3,000 sheep in a final act of defiance, remembered as Ill Week. More than 100 riders were hunted down and many were hanged. Surviving Elliott families fled to Ulster, especially County Fermanagh, and their descendants carried the name into the Appalachian Mountains. If your name is Elliot, your family's last free act is still remembered by name. Number 6. Bell. A name so common in Appalachia that most bells assume it is simply English, a name from a church bell or a bell maker. Some English bells are, but the bells of the Scots-Irish migration were something else entirely. A recognized riding clan of the Scottish West March, listed in the surviving border records alongside the Armstrongs, Elliots, and Grahams as one of the raiding families who lived by the moonlight and the long spear. Their territory was Annandale and the country around the River Kirtle, where they rode with the Grahams and feuded like everyone else on that frontier. When the border was pacified, Bell families moved into Ulster in significant numbers, and the name became one of the most common in the northern counties of Ireland before the Great Migration carried it to Pennsylvania and down the wagon road into the mountains. If your name is Bell and your people came out of Ulster, you are not descended from a bell ringer. You are descended from a riding clan. Number 7. Scott. The most literal surname on this list, and one of the most misunderstood. Scott simply means the Scot, a name first applied centuries ago to identify a Scottish person living among non-Scots, which is why the name is oldest and thickest along the border, where the two nations pressed against each other. Clan Scott became one of the most powerful families of the Scottish Middlemarch, holding Teviotdale and the country around Buccleuch, and they rode and raided with the best of them, appearing in every surviving list of the great reaving surnames. The head of the clan, the Scot of Buccleuch, commanded enough riders to conduct what were effectively private military operations, including the famous rescue of a captured reiver from an English castle in 1596. After the border fell quiet, Scot families joined the movement into Ulster and then to America, where the name spread through the Appalachian settlements. If your name is Scot, your surname is not a vague label. It marks the exact frontier where being Scottish was the thing worth naming. Number 8. Kerr, also spelled Carr, in thousands of American records. A great riding clan of the Scottish Middlemarch, holding the country around Jedburgh and locked in a long rivalry between its own two branches, the Kerrs of Cessford and the Kerrs of Ferniehirst. The name is generally traced to a word meaning marsh or rough, wet ground, but the legend attached to this family is stranger than the etymology. The Kerrs were famous as a left-handed clan. Kerr tradition holds that the family fought left-handed by design, and that their tower staircases spiraled the opposite way from everyone else's, built so a left-handed swordsman could defend the steps. To this day, corrie-fisted remains a Scottish expression for left-handed tied in folklore to this family. Kerr and Carr families moved through Ulster and into the American backcountry with the rest of the border diaspora. If your name is Kerr or Carr, ask the left-handers in your family. The clan would have claimed them first. Before I show you the last part, if you've ever looked at your own results and wondered where your Scots-Irish surname fits into your bloodline, I put it all together in a guide called Where Do You Really Come From? Link is in the description, but stay right here, because what comes next is the part most people completely miss. Number 9. Maxwell, the other side of the bloodiest feud in border history. The Maxwells were the dominant power of the Scottish West March, lords of Kerr Castle near Dumfries, and for generations they held the office of March Warden, the Crown's own law on the frontier, while behaving very much like the raiders they were supposed to police. The name itself is territorial, from Maxwell on the River Tweed, meaning Maccus's Pool, the fishing spot of a man named Maccus who lived nearly 1,000 years ago. Their war with the Johnstones of Annandale ran for decades and climaxed in 1593 at the Battle of Dryfe Sands, where the Johnstones cut down hundreds of Maxwells, including their chief, in the largest clan battle of the border era. When that world ended, Maxwell families moved into Ulster with the rest of the riding names, and the American migration carried them into the Appalachian settlements. If your name is Maxwell, your family once held a castle, a king's office, and a feud that neither side ever truly won. Number 10. Wilson, the name most likely to be dismissed as generic, and one of the most heavily Scots-Irish surnames in the American record. Wilson means son of Will, and on the surface, that could be anyone, but surname distribution tells a different story. Wilson has for centuries been one of the most common names in lowland Scotland and among the most common names in Ulster, carried there in force during the 17th century settlements. The name also appears in the surviving border records, listed among the frontier families of the Reiving era, which means some Wilson lines were riding that lawless country alongside the Armstrongs and Elliots before Ulster was ever planted. When the Great Migration began in the 18th century, Wilsons crossed in such numbers that the name saturates the early records of Pennsylvania, Virginia, and the Carolina backcountry, and it remains everywhere in the mountains today. If your name is Wilson and your family is old Appalachian stock, do not let the plainness of the name fool you. Plain names hide the deepest trails, and this one runs straight through Ulster. Number 11. Hamilton. Every other name on this list rode into Ulster or was exiled there. The Hamiltons built it. Hamilton is a territorial name carried by one of the most powerful noble families in lowland Scotland. And in 1606, a Scottish courtier named Sir James Hamilton, together with Sir Hugh Montgomery, launched the private settlement of North County Down that brought thousands of lowland Scots across the water, 3 years before the official plantation of Ulster even began. Hamilton lairds and their tenants then took up lands across the plantation counties, in Tyrone, in Strabane, across the north, and the surname multiplied through every level of Ulster society, from earls down to farmhands, who took the name of the estate. A century later, Hamilton families joined the flood out of Ulster to Pennsylvania and followed the wagon road south into the Virginia and Carolina mountains. If your name is Hamilton, your family was not swept along by the Scots-Irish story. Your family's name is on the deed. They were the ones who opened the door everyone else walked through. Number 12. Cunningham. A name that sounds English, looks English, and is one of the most distinctly Scottish names in the entire Scots-Irish migration. Cunningham is territorial, from the district of Cunningham in Ayrshire, in the southwest lowlands, the exact region that supplied more settlers to Ulster than almost anywhere else in Scotland. The family's heraldic symbol is one of the strangest in Scotland, a black shake fork, the Y-shaped fork used for pitching hay, and clan legend explains it with a story of an ancestor who hid a fugitive prince under the hay and earned the family's lands with a pitchfork. The Cunninghams of Ayrshire spent generations in a bitter feud with the neighboring Montgomerys, and when the Ulster settlements opened, both names crossed the water together. With Cunningham so numerous around the plantation, that the name became a fixture of the northern counties. From there it followed the standard road, Ulster to Pennsylvania, to the Appalachian backcountry. If your name is Cunningham, your map points to one Ayrshire district, and the pitchfork on the shield is your family's oldest story. Number 13, Ferguson, one of the oldest personal names in Scotland, hiding inside one of the most common surnames in the mountains. Ferguson is the anglicized form of the Gaelic Macfergways, son of Fergus, and Fergus itself is a name of enormous weight, generally translated as man of vigor or man of force. It is also the name written into Scotland's origin story, because Fergus More, Fergus the Great, is the semi-legendary king said to have led the Gaels from Ireland into Argyll around the year 500 and founded the royal line from which Scottish kings claimed descent. Ferguson families appeared across Scotland, in Ayrshire, in Dumfriesshire, in the Highlands, with no single clan seat, and the lowland branches fed steadily into the Ulster settlements of the 17th century. Their descendants crossed to America in the Great Migration and spread through the Appalachian valleys, where the name remains everywhere from Pennsylvania to Georgia. If your name is Ferguson, the name inside your name belonged to the king the Scots themselves chose as their beginning. Number 14, McCoy, the most famous feud surname in American history, and a name whose real origin almost nobody carrying it can explain. McCoy is a Gaelic name, an anglicized form of Mac Aoda, son of Aod, an ancient personal name meaning fire, born by a Celtic god and by generations of chiefs. The same Gaelic root produced Mackay in Scotland and McGee and McHugh in Ireland, one fire scattered into a dozen spellings. The McCoy lines of America are generally traced through the Scottish Highlands and through Ulster, where the name settled before joining the 18th century migration into the mountains. And in the valleys along the Tug Fork, on the Kentucky and West Virginia border, the McCoys wrote their name into American legend in the decades after the Civil War, in the feud with the Hatfields that became the most famous family war on the continent. A border-style blood feud fought in Appalachia by descendants of the migration. If your name is McCoy, the old world's fire came down the wagon road with you. Number 15, Jackson. The twist and the name that proves what the Scots-Irish actually were. Jackson means son of Jack, and it is the surname of the most famous Scots-Irish American who ever lived, Andrew Jackson. Born in the Carolina backcountry in 1767, to parents who had sailed from Ulster just 2 years earlier. Old Hickory, the first frontier president, the living symbol of Scots-Irish America. But trace the Jackson male line back past Ulster, and it does not land in Scotland at all. It lands in Yorkshire, England, because the Ulster settlements were never purely Scottish. English and Welsh families planted alongside the lowland Scots, absorbed the same Presbyterian culture, boarded the same ships, and became Scots-Irish in every way that mattered. Stonewall Jackson, the Confederate general, came from the same broad Ulster stream. If your name is Jackson and your people are mountain people, your family may be the final proof that Scots-Irish was never a bloodline from one country. It was a people forged in Ulster, whatever door they first came through. 15 surnames. The outlaw clans of Armstrong and Elliot, the feuding houses of Johnston and Maxwell, the planters named Hamilton, the fire of Mac Aoda burning inside McCoy, and the Yorkshire line that gave Scots-Irish America its greatest name. The records are open. Ulster plantation documents and church registers are held at the Public Record Office of Northern Ireland, Prony. The 1,790 census surname studies map where these families settled, and the border records still list the riding clans by name. Your surname is the starting point. The county in Ulster is the next step. And Scotland is waiting behind both. Subscribe right now if this video showed you your mountain name in a way you had never seen it. Comment below. Is your name on this list? Which valley, which county, which state? Tell me. Share this with every Appalachian family still carrying a name without knowing the map inside it.